Okay, so today we're taking a look at Henry Hudson for class. So let's take a look at that reading together. In Europe during the 16th century, most people lived and died within just a few miles of the place they were born. Can you imagine what it might be like to never travel as far as the distance you might go to the mall? Only a small percentage of people were able to see the world. These men were sailors, merchants, and explorers. One of the most famous explorers was Henry Hudson. Very little is known about Henry Hudson, not even the year of his birth. It could have been anywhere between 1550 and 1570. Certain clues help us to learn things about him. He could read and write in both English and Latin. He could also speak French. That tells us he had a reasonable amount of education. That pointed to his family being well-to-do. Some people think that Hudson was one of the sailors who helped defeat the Spanish Armada in 1588. He is not mentioned by name, but it is possible. This is the first time his name appears officially. It is as captain of the Hopewell in 1607. The Muscovy Company hired him to explore the Arctic waters in an effort to find a shorter route to China. It was believed by many men of the time that the ice caps would melt in the heat of the sun during the long winters of the far north. This was later proven false by the explorers. In April 1607, Hudson sailed the Hopewell north to Greenland. By mid-June, they turned northeast towards Spitzbergen. The way was blocked by ice, but Hudson saw many large whales in the area. He returned home to England, and his report of the whales sparked great interest. The Muscovy Company tried to get Hudson to lead whalers north, but he declined. Others went instead, and in a few years the whales had almost disappeared from that area. In April 1608, Hudson again took the Hopewell northeast, looking for a shortcut to China. Ice stopped him again. He wasn't ready to go back to England and wanted to try looking for a northwest route instead. Henry didn't tell the crew at first, but they soon figured it out. They expressed their anger by threatening to mutiny. He stopped them by turning the ship for home. He also wrote a letter that swore he had not been forced to do so. The penalty for mutiny was hanging. After that failed voyage, the Muscovy Company had no real interest in continuing to explore. Hudson made a deal with the Dutch to explore for them. In 1609, he took his ship, the Half Moon, northeast to look for the fabled passage. His crew again threatened to mutiny. To calm the crew, they sailed southwest to the east coast of America. After trading with some Native Americans, one of Hudson's crewmen took an armed group to an Indian village. They threatened the people and stole everything of value. It was one of the first fights of many fights with the natives. They moved north and found the mouth of what would be called the Hudson River. Hudson hoped it was the waterway through the continent to the west, but it was not. On Hudson's return to Holland, he stopped off in England, where his ship was detained. Hudson and the English crew were forced to stay in England, while the ship and all Hudson's notes were returned to Holland. Hudson was able to find sponsors for his fourth exploration. This time the ship was the Discovery, and he set sail in the spring of 1610. They sailed northwest, past Greenland, and up the waterway known as the Hudson Strait. Then he traveled west into a large bay named for him, and south to James Bay. In September, the ship was still in James Bay as Hudson systematically surveyed the depth of the water. It was too late to return home, and in November they pulled the ship from the water for the winter. After suffering from disease, starvation, and freezing conditions all winter, the spring finally came. Despite shortages of food on board, Hudson was not anxious to return home. The crew mutinied, and Hudson, along with several crew members, were set adrift in a small boat on the large bay. Nothing is known of what happened to Hudson after being set adrift. The mutineers headed back to England. All active mutineers died en route, and the remainder of the crew was not prosecuted. Hudson was not a strong or decisive leader, but he was a good navigator. He never achieved his fondest dream, but his name is remembered because of his journeys. The impact he made as an explorer made his name one of the best known of the English explorers. So to finish today, you're taking a look at these questions about Hudson, and then you'll submit them to the digital Dropbox below. Contact me if you need anything.